30s is a hard decade for people. This is the decade where you grow up. You start with families your job.
I was going to say, have you grown up yet, Nick?
Completely. I didn't get the memo.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Mr. Nick?
I'm good. I'm recovering from our NYT conference that we were both at the weekend, which was awesome.
Had a great time there with a bunch of people we've had on the show, a bunch of people who may be on the show. But hey, today, and this one, I love these conferences because we meet people all the time. And today our guest is somebody we met at BoucherCon just a few weeks ago in Nashville. Best-selling author Rachel Howzell Hall, and we're going to talk to her a little bit. But first, I have a listener question for you because this is from Tammy in Bangor, Maine. So she has a question for you about how do you get over imposter syndrome? She says she has her book to publish, but she's scared no one will want to read it.
Good question. Imposter syndrome. How do you get over it? I don't think we ever get beyond it. I'm sure there's some people that do. But I mean, we're both 20-something books into this.
I'm just faking it till I make it.
Exactly. Yeah, you still, I mean, we're doing okay for ourselves. We're making a living writing books, but you still get hit with it. So this question is your first book. So my advice is there's a process when you put out that first book. You've got to get it edited properly. So there's your first step. Before the public ever see this, you're going to run it through an editor and you're going to use a reputable editor, hopefully. That doesn't mean it has to be super expensive. There's some really reasonable folks out there that do a fantastic job. But you're going to run it through an editor and they're going to give you some feedback. So even if they're just a copy editor, you can ask them to give you a little bit of feedback on the pacing, on the story, on the characters and what have you. And they see a lot of work. So they're going to be able to give you a good basic idea of whether you've hit the mark or it's falling short. Even if they're being really polite, you can kind of take what they say and have a look at it. And that's a very private conversation that you're going to have with them. So I think if it needs a couple of changes, make those changes, right? And then it gets re-edited. Then it's ready to go out to the next level of people. And if you've managed to put together smart readers, hopefully they're outside of your immediate circle of friends, that's another layer of feedback that you're going to get before it goes out there to the world. So you're going to steadily build that confidence that what you've got is truly okay and that people are going to enjoy it. What do you think there, Douglas?
I agree with you on pretty much everything, but I would say I'll add that I think oftentimes you're probably putting the cart ahead of the horse. Like, I mean, at this point, if you have one book out, you've done a big accomplishment. To write a book is a big accomplishment. But once you've written the book and you've written 20 of them, you're going to look back at this book and go, wow, this book is terrible. I look back at my first book and I'm like, it's terrible. It's one of the things you've learned from because I've done so many. And the whole idea of the 10,000 hours to get to an expert, you know, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're supposed to be an expert. And I think you and I both have probably done far more than 10,000 hours, and I'm not an expert yet.
I'm still waiting to be an expert. Yeah, I'm not.
So I think the thing is you kind of learn that one, not everyone's going to like you. And that's just in life in general. But your expectations kind of need to be kind of kept down. You're not going to write the first book, and odds are you're not going to hit $1 million on it. Like Nick said, he and I both have written over 20 books each. And not once have we made $1 million off of any one book. It's going to happen one day. I have no doubt. But we do very well nonetheless. But you're going to get there. You're going to build to it. And don't expect a whole lot out of the gate. And you won't feel quite as disappointed. You know, it's going to take 2 or 3 books to really get a footing before people start reading your stuff. That's just kind of the nature of the business. So,
yeah, just keep doing it. Listen to the positives far more than the negatives, and that'll help you there.
Yeah, and keep listening to us because we'll tell you, just get over it. Stop it. Fake it. You know? But hey, let's talk about somebody who's not an imposter, though, really. Like this person she is the real deal.
She's amazing.
She is awesome. This is Rachel Howzell Hall, New York Times and a Wall Street Journal best-selling thriller novels. And she has her Detective Eloise Norton series and also a selection of standalones like A Quiet Storm, They All Fall Down, and her most recent one, which came out this summer, What Fire Brings. And she's about to release, this is really cool. She's about to break. She's like, I'm kicking ass in thrillers, but that's not enough. Let's go over here. And she's about to release her first fantasy, the last one this year. And we're going to talk to her a little bit about that. So let's welcome Rachel Howzell Hall to the show. Welcome, Rachel, here to the show with us. I'm so excited to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy always to talk about writing and process and why we do the things we do.
Well, we didn't give you much choice because we cornered you at Bouchercon after you got off a panel that you did with Doug, and we had cornered. And
That's
we said,
how
come on the
things happen.
show and not letting you leave the room. And she said, fine, we'll do it.
Keep you in Tennessee. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. We was like, no, you can't leave Nashville. So yeah. No, it was great. I got to sit on the panel with you. We talked about some stuff. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of carry this conversation a little farther and just kind of see. And so kind of want to start off just kind of, how did you start writing and how long have you been writing and how long have you been published?
Right. So again, thank you for inviting me on. Like all of us writers, I've been around books and loved writing since I was little, reading things that age appropriate. Probably not. But there was something about words and stories that it didn't matter. And I got to disappear into those worlds. And I didn't realize, that I could actually be a writer until well out of college. My first out of college job was at Penn Center USA West, which is similar to like an Amnesty International, but for writers. And that's where I first met working writers like Gary Phillips, for instance, and David Ulin. And I saw that you didn't have to be like this huge in an ivory castle type intellectual like Toni Morrison and Alice Walker. I could actually tell the stories that I grew up loving and reading, genre, for example. And so I started it and I started writing. And, this was back when everybody wanted to be on that Grantham magazine, 30 Under 30, because, for some arbitrary reason, being a genius before 30 is coveted. But, I started writing and wanting to write the great American novel. And I got my first book deal with Scribner, which is huge. It's Simon & Schuster. And it was published on the first anniversary of 9/11, which kind of sucks, only because it was a story. It's called A Quiet Storm. And it was a story about a Black family in Los Angeles dealing with bipolar disorder, which is, as far as you can get away from the first anniversary of 9/11 type stuff. It's totally different. And so it did as good as it could. I'm still looking for royalties from that. I'll probably never get.
Maybe a re-release one day.
Yeah, exactly. When I am ultra famous and they're like, what happened to that little book that tried? I didn't get another book deal. It did okay. Didn't do as well as it could. And this was in my early 30s. I was 32 when it came out. And 30s is a hard decade for people. This is the decade where you grow up, right? You start with families and your job.
I was going to say, have you grown up yet, Nick?
Completely. I didn't get the
memo. You're 25 years too late. So,
yeah, the reminder that, you're growing up. Your parents are starting to get old. Your friends are either getting married or having babies, and you're starting to attend more funerals for your parents' friends. So it's kind of like that eye-opening type of decade of living. And so it was also the decade where I was trying to figure out what my voice was, what I wanted to write. And this is where, after going through some life stuff, from having our first child to being a cancer survivor and dealing with layoffs and all the rest of it, grown-up stuff, that I was getting closer and closer to what I really wanted to write and how I wanted to say what concerned me. And that was crime fiction. I wanted to write a story that was Terry McMillan meets Walter Mosley, because it was Devil in a Blue Dress and Waiting to Excel. And that ended up being a police procedural, but I wasn't a cop. I, wasn't a lawyer even. But I had actually faced cancer while being pregnant with my daughter and then going through cancer care and having another scare. So I wasn't scared of like writing anymore because I knew what true fear was. And I started writing what would be Land of Shadows, the first of my Lou Norton series. And, I got a new agent because I had broken up with my first agent and then like maybe 2 or 3 subsequent agents after that.
I love
And
that, broken up with my agent.
Yeah, we just decided it's not you, it's not me, it just is. But Jill Marshall, who became my agent, is still my agent. She sold it to Forge, and that was the first of a book a year for me. I think that was 2014, and I've been writing crime ever since. And, I love it. It's my home. I will never stop writing it. I like taking real life things and, yeah, sure, making them fiction, but doing it because I think we all are scared of things and we're trying to understand why we're scared and what we can do to be less scared, and sharing with our family and friends and now our readers of what's out there and what they should be looking at and looking for. So a book a year, that's who I am. Well, now 2 books a year. And we'll get into that.
All right. So you've been trad the whole time?
No, actually, when I couldn't sell that second book, I kept trying to write it and kept trying to write it, tried to sell it through with other agents, but it never landed anywhere. So I started the next one, couldn't sell it, and did a next one. And by this time, it was 2011, and Amazon had just launched the Kindle self-publishing program. So I uploaded 2 of those stories that I couldn't sell, The View from Here and No One Knows You're Here. And I'm still like making, some nice kind of lunch money from those 2 books. But more than that, it helped me get closer and closer to what I wanted to write. And No One Knows You're Here actually has, as the lead character, the woman who'd be Lou's best friend in the Land of Shadows series. So that's how closely I came to saying, this is what it is, because now my universes are getting closer. But it was that program that helped me get there and feel like I could profit from some of this hard work of putting words to paper.
I love the fact that you've taken this time and journey to figure out exactly what it is that floats your boat. You know what I mean? From a writing, what really gives you joy to write. That's fantastic.
And, the older we get, the more we learn. And that whole 30 under 30 thing ends up being crap, because some of the best writing is from people who've actually lived life, who've experienced hardship and sadness and true fear and have gained wisdom from that. So even though, the bulk of my 30s was not being published, it still went into my writing journey. I was still writing, and I was still using writing as healing and therapy and gaining insight from it. And it just helped, I think, my writing to become richer than what it would have had I've had immediate success.
We were just talking in our intro about what we grow from. I mean, like the fact that like after 20 books, I think that if you go back to my first book, I recommend everybody not read it. Just buy it, but don't read it.
Yeah.
It's not that good compared to what I do now. So it's a huge difference. So let's talk a little bit about you write kind of in that like a thriller suspense. What are your secrets, I guess, for building that suspense in the thriller?
That's a weird kind of hard question, because some of it is, it's hard to explain. I think part of it is fear and constantly wondering, what if? Like, I'm always like writing that story in my head as I kind of just go about. And if you pay too much attention to it, as writers tend to, we pay too close attention to life sometimes, you're just kind of scared shitless, because it's like, oh my God, no one else is seeing what's happening here? And I think I work to kind of infuse my writing with that kind of breathless skepticism, yes, but also the breathless, I can't believe this is happening to me right now. And I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. I'm in Citizens Police Academy right now. I did a ride along on Sunday, And of course, you have to sign this waiver and it says all the bad things that can happen. And writers, we actually read that. And it's like, oh, I hope that happens, but I don't hope that happens. It's kind of like, oh, but I'm going to sign this anyway. And then it's like, oh, crap. And so, we stopped 4 times on this ride along. And, I obviously made it because I'm here. But it's that whole, this seems like it's okay, but then there are instances when things aren't okay. And I'm very, very aware of that. It's okay for now until it's not. And my editors always call it, what I write, Cozy's Gone Crazy, because I do take this kind of very simple, seems like an innocuous idea, and then I just like clear the table and knock over things and kick doors down and burn it all up. Because that's how I see life. You go about your life, you go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden someone's shooting. That is what life is now. You
uncozy it.
Right.
Let me ask you on that top of that before we kind of jump off this, that when you're delivering that suspense, how do you deliver that in the book without it getting exhausting to the readers? Like, sometimes we read these books and you're like, oh, I'm up all night. And that's really the goal. But you got to kind of balance that without it being like, with like a whole.
Yeah, I'm an outliner. So that helps a lot. And also, I just don't like the breathlessness. I'm a gamer. So my husband, I love RPGs. I absolutely, like I've playing Baldur's Gate 3 again, but Fallout 4, I've played countless times, but my husband just downloaded, oh gosh, what is it called? Some marine, ultramarine, something that just came out on Xbox. And while I liked shooting at all the aliens, it was this constant onslaught and I couldn't take a breath. It's like, can I just stop and save and like go get something to drink and pause and, and it wouldn't. And I stopped playing it because I don't like being breathless all the time. It's too much. And so I take that kind of sensibility into my writings. Like I like moving things along and I like making people breathless, but I like having to take a breath because even in the worst things, you do kind of get to assess and say, okay, so this sucks. What next? Before going through the next wave of aliens coming at you.
And Nick, I'll explain all the gaming stuff to you later on, okay?
Hey, I was really good at Pong.
Oh, boy.
He played a lot of Atari.
That's something. They've made some stuff since then.
Because even in Centipede, there's a moment.
Yeah, Galactic with a Galago, and you're like, oh man, that's the one that, that's breathless right there. So
yeah.
Yeah, my son is Andy is big into gaming, and our grandson is, and it's never been a path I've gone down. All right, I've been dying to ask you about this. So you have a new book coming out at the end of this year, and you are moving after, we've just talked about how you found your genre and found your voice, and you've got all this success in mystery crime thrillers, and you are writing basically a romantasy, right?
A romantasy, yes. I know, it's so random, it seems, but it kind of makes sense in a way that I like saying things in different ways. And even with my crime stories, I look to tell a story in a different way every single time. I like doing that. I like learning the tricks of other writers. I like learning. And I never thought in a million years I'd either write a fantasy or a romance. And Liz Pelletier of Red Tower, she came to me and asked if I was interested. And I have never said no to many things. I like saying yes because you don't know what that opportunity will ultimately mean for me and for my family. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to do this, but you're going to teach me and I'm going to learn. And so I said yes. And it's going to probably be the biggest book I've written in my entire career. And, it's a weird thing to be learning while on the job. I don't have a trunk novel of a romance or a fantasy. This is my very first time, like literally my first time writing any type of genre, like a fantasy or romance. And so is it perfect? Of course it's not. My books that I've been writing forever, those aren't either. They're more refined, of course, because I know the genre. I've been doing it for years and years and years. So it's not going to be What Fire Brings, which just came out in June. But it is an earnest and respectful, I think, a debut that I'm actually, I infuse some crime fiction in there, some mystery of who am I? Why are people upset at me? Why am I here? What's the whole point of this? Who gets to rule and who says that they get to do that? So I bring a lot of my righteous indignation that I tend to pepper through my crime stories into this romantasy. And it was hard. I mean, one, learning how to write anyway, it's a hard thing, even for those of us who've written so many books. You don't go into any book saying, oh yeah, I know how to do that. And I doing that while writing another book. I was writing my mystery at the same time, while also going through tragedy after tragedy. My in-laws both passed while I was writing this book. My father passed and our dog died all at the same time. So I'm like getting this lesson in basically what I'm writing about, which is trauma, and moving through that to focus on who I am, what I believe, what happens next. So yeah, it was hard to learn how to write these two genres smushed together. And it was hard from a day-to-day perspective of doing all this. Well, also, having a day job and at the same time getting my kid through college while dealing with all this grief. So it was a lot. I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But again, as we were talking about at the very beginning, I take these moments and learn from them, try and get as much insight and good material out of this as much as possible.
So with crime fiction, we have certain railings we have to stay between, right? So it has to be plausible in some way, shape, or form. The processes of the police and all that kind of thing have to be pretty much hard and fast. There's a few things like the timing of stuff that we all have to cheat because otherwise it doesn't work. But with fantasy, the railings are gone.
That was the hardest thing for me, because I could turn to, well, the law says this. For fantasy, it's like, I am the law. I am the law. What is that law? What is religion? What is sociology? I had to come up with all of that. And, I thought I had to build the world. And I thought I was building the world. And at 120,000 words, I thought I was doing good, until it's like, yeah, that's not big enough. I need more world. So, I enjoyed it, but again, I'm going through so much already that having to go back and rewrite a lot because I didn't do enough world building, it was challenging. It was fun, but it was challenging. And then there was also the whole romance part. I don't have romance in my crime stories. So it's like, well, where am I going to get that? Where am I going to get that from? How am I going to learn that? But, as a Gen X kid, I did turn to those romances that I loved the most. And those two were Maddie and David in Moonlighting, and Sam and Diane in Cheers. And so they were my two North Stars for the type of romance, adult grown-up romance that I was looking for. And from the reviews that I've gotten so far, I managed to do well with both of those things.
Outstanding. You should have called Doug when it came to the romance, because he is a romance writer. His main character
and that's right.
has a lot of overnight romance.
If somebody would like me to write a romantasy, I would do it in a heartbeat,
Hey, yeah.
It would probably be dragons with Glocks. I think that would be dragons on a boat.
Yeah,
dragons on a boat.
Dragons on a boat.
With big guns, yeah.
Big guns.
It'd be fun to write dragons. What's not fun about writing dragons? I mean, it doesn't appeal to everybody. I'd be terrible at it, but I'm sure. But everybody loves a dragon.
I think everybody loves dragons. And when they come on screen, you're like, dragons, oh my God. So, but that was a challenge for me because I didn't have dragons. So it's like, so what's going to be my thing? And I think I found it. So the next series, I'll do dragons. So yeah, so this is a duology. So there are going to be 4 books total, 2 from one point of view and 2 from another point of view. So yeah, I'll be writing 2 books a year for the next several years, which, I don't have anything to do. So why not?
So, yeah. So are you continuing doing your thrillers as well?
Oh gosh, yes. I am poking back into procedurals. So Fog and Fury is the first series that I'm doing with Thomas and Mercer, and that will come out in May or June. And she is a disgraced LAPD cop who relocates to this town I created called Haven, which is basically Mendocino County, Mendocino Coast. And her first case is finding a missing golden doodle. So once again, the cozy idea that, yeah, it's going to be more than her finding a missing golden doodle, of course.
Let's ask a couple of things that we ask most of our guests. So I think you already said you're an outliner. Are you a pure outliner? Are you a really detailed outliner?
I'm a detailed outliner, but what that allows me to do is, go off the beaten path because I know I have the outline. I feel safe. But yeah, I like outlining because I like control and I like checking things off and crossing things off the list. So I feel progress.
What's your ratio? I'm always curious about this, about between time spent plotting and laying out and how many words do you end up within your outline approximately? And then what's the ratio of actual writing time?
I give myself about 2 to 3 weeks to outline. And then I start on that. And it's weird because I have 3 parts of my outline. So I will do index cards first and then putting those out. And then I'll go back and I'll do everything in Save the Cat, the novel writing software, and then printing things out. And then after I do those 2 to 3 weeks, then I give myself about a month and a half for the very, 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 very awful first draft, which is where I am now in the second of the fantasies. Oh, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. But you got to put something down, right? So I started that September 1st, and I expect to be done with that first draft Saturday or Sunday. And then the fun part comes, and that's the second draft where it's like, okay, now I'm actually going to write this thing.
Wow, that's pretty quick. Wait a second, back up there. You started it on September the 1st?
Oh, but my second draft will take forever.
But your first draft, how many words in your first draft?
Oh, it'll be probably about 60,000 words. So it's pretty spare. But they're like underlines and capital this, that kind of thing, where it's placeholders everywhere, describe. So that's why the second draft takes so very, very long because, yeah, my favorite draft is the third because by now I know what the story is and it's just making people sound like how they should sound, giving voice and the musicality of all of it.
Well, we have another question. We ask this to everybody. So what do you consider your author superpower?
I think my author superpower is what we were just saying.
I was going to say, it sounded like that.
Yeah. Taking this very kind of simple, straightforward idea and just mucking it up and making it bad and making it real. I think that's what I do the best. And it's funny because a lot of people, that could never happen. And it's like, actually, every story I've told, there's a story, a real life story that I read somewhere on the internet that came from that.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. We're going to run one more question by you, which we have this wheel. We're going to spin the wheel.
So it just kind of goes like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. See?
Like the Price is Right.
Very much. Yeah. You go $1, $1, $1, $1. Okay. Bucket list question. Who is the co-writer you would be like, I would love to write with this person? It's the one person never that I want.
That we have to serve up a caveat here because you've already written with James Patterson, have you not?
Correct. I have.
Yeah. So you can't include, because you've already hit pretty high on a bucket list. You've written with James Patterson. So you got to pick another one now.
Okay. So can I get 2? One for the romantasy and one for...
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm ruling out Doug and I because I know you were about to go there. So I just want to take that pressure off and go.
Right. Because when people think James Patterson, they think Doug and Nick. That's what they're thinking. They're like, that's where they go.
Yeah, that's what I think. So I would love to write a romantasy with Rebecca Yaros, who is my label mate at Red Tower, because she does the dragons and she has a great voice and we get along really well, and that would be really fun.
She's, if people don't know about her, they probably don't, because I don't know. She's not doing too well for herself yet, but she's got potential. I'm telling you.
Yeah, she's going.
You know what she
somewhere,
needs? She needs
Rebecca.
Glocks. She needs Glocks with those dragons.
If only her dragons
That's
had
right.
Glocks.
I'm going to email her later on. I'm going to see if she and I can co-write Dragons with Glocks and see what that happens.
Would be awesome.
I think that would be brilliant. So, and for your crime fiction, then?
And then for crime, I would love to co-write with Walter Mosley, because he writes old school Los Angeles, and I'm very noir, and I'm new Los Angeles, and maybe a father-daughter type, or Easy has a niece or something like that who's taken over his business. That would be a dream. And I hadn't even thought of that until you asked this question.
Let's call Walter right now. Yeah, let's see, because that would be awesome. Yeah.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Very cool. Well, this has been absolutely brilliant, Rachel. We're glad we penned you in a corner of a room in,
at the Grand Opryland. Yes.
Yeah, in Opryland.
And talked you into it. So thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck. Not that you're going to need it, because you're gonna hit the charts with your new fantasy book and enjoy that new genre. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Rachel. She's kind of inspiring.
Wow, isn't she, though? It makes me feel like I need to get out and write some...
Dragons with Glocks.
Man, Dragons with Glocks. If Rebecca wants to jump out.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely gives you that, anything's possible. She's got that anything's possible vibe kind of thing. She's overcome a lot. She's been through a lot. And she's still hammer down, being successful and doing great. So what's exciting in your world, Douglas? What you been doing?
Wow. Well, I've been driving for 2 days straight. So on the plus side, I do have a book out that came out today, which is
Crossbones.
Crossbones.
Right. Crossbones came out today.
Yeah, Crossbones came out today. So if you have,
I just read that too. It's fun as heck.
Thank you. So yeah, so it's out there now, and so if you get a chance, it just picks up with Ricky Talons, who's in Deep Gold and Gulf Dreams with Chase, and so she gets her own series now. So this will be fun. So that's out. But beyond that, I really just spent a great week, just kind of spend time with you. I mean, I love hanging out with you. We don't see each other nearly enough, so that's always fun. And our wives, we'll invite them along too.
Because our wives are way cooler than we are.
Oh, by far.
Everyone likes seeing our wives, and then they accept seeing us.
We had a great time. We went to NYT. NYT is for authors out there, it's a great conference. It's kind of small. It's on the beach in St. Petersburg, or on St. Pete Beach, I guess is what it is. And it's just a gorgeous facility. We've got lots of authors you can hang out with, you're talking to, really just kind of dig deep into things. And there's some great sections. So I don't know. I'm still kind of processing everything I just came through. So
I know. I've come back with business cards, notes. So it's so the one thing that's different about NYT is it is an author-only conference. There's some others like that, but you to join Novelists Inc., you have to reach a certain sales level. It's not massively high, but it is a certain level that
it's got to be enough to pay for Taco Bell
full time. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
So it's writers generally with multiple books out and are starting to at least build a career. So, and there's a bunch of seminars by industry people or other authors about various subjects. And the big thing is the networking and hanging out with folks. That's the really cool thing. You get to chat with industry people, you get to chat with other authors. And for me, it's less about the seminars. I mean, first of all, when you go to a few of these conferences, it tends to be a bit of a repeat on a lot of the presentations and what have you. So I found this year I went to less presentations than I've ever gone to and spent more time in meetings with people, outside of that and chatting with other authors. And I've come back with a list of to-dos, which was great.
My list is huge about what we went over. And you and I talked about some stuff. I know our friend Drew was there. We talked to him and Nick Thacker. We had several of us were kind of hanging out the last night, just talking about some of the things we learned and picked up. And it's amazing what we kind of do. And it's nice because it kind of like talking with Rachel is we get to talk to people who do different genres. And it's like I tell everybody all the time, your mileage may vary. So what works for us in a tropical thriller or even a regular thriller Doesn't necessarily work for romantasy or for true crime, but it's nice to see what the differences are and see what we can do together. And really, there's no competition in it. When you deal with authors, that's one of the things I love the most about this community is we have no competition. Like I have no desire to beat Nick in sales or outsell him. I just want him to succeed. He wants me to succeed. I want everybody who we come in contact with to succeed, because it's the beauty of this relationship is it's growing and everything kind of goes at one time. So we're always reading.
And when we put out books, every 3 months or whatever that might be, and most of our readers are reading probably 6 to 8 books in between us putting out another book, sometimes a lot more than that, sometimes a dozen books. So we love promoting our friends. It's a great community. And the other thing we got to do was go up in an airplane.
I was getting ready to say, we didn't get to go with our two good friends, which was Nate Van Coops, who's been on the show, and our other friend, Cap Daniels.
Who's going to be on the show.
He says so, but
I spoke with his wife, Melissa, who's an absolute sweetheart, and she's the boss.
She's the boss, yeah. But no, it was great. They both had, Nate lives down there, but he's a pilot and Cap's a pilot, and they took several authors up, so we got a chance to get up and fly around St. Pete Beach and see everything from above, which was awesome. It's always been it's a bug of mine that on my bucket list to go learn to fly, and so maybe it might have spurred me on. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah, it was fun. Took a little turn at the stick there, so it was fun. All right, great show. Thank you so much to Rachel for coming on. And check out the show notes for links to Rachel's info and our book, social media, all that good stuff. And look for new episodes every 2 weeks. So until next time, be cool to each other.
And fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for alerts on new shows coming every 2 weeks.